It was reportedly the first sunny day that New York City had after weeks of cold weather and rainfall. The city received an influx of tourists who were visiting to see astronaut John Glenn partake in the Broadway ticker tape parade. Instead of fog and mist, optimism was now in the air, and the people of Manhattan were anticipating nothing but great things to come. American Airlines Flight 1, temporarily stationed at Idlewild International Airport, was scheduled for takeoff nonstop to Los Angeles at 10 o'clock in the morning. The Boeing 707 aircraft carried 87 passengers and 8 flight attendants. 17 of them were originally booked for a flight with United Airlines that was canceled, but were happy that they had the convenience to occupy new seats at the last minute. It was among one of the most luxurious airliner models of the time. The plane's carrying capacity was not exceeded. All of the plane's jets were in stable condition, and both the radio and pressure system were already fixed the night before. The plane met all the safety requisites and was ready for departure.
The wreckage of a huge luxury jetliner marks the scene of the worst single-plane disaster in U.S. history.
The plane crashed just 5 minutes after takeoff. All people on board were dead. The impact of the crash was so great, it shook all the buildings within a half-mile radius. The authorities were notified by the crash because it actually quaked the nearest fire department. Within just a few minutes, they arrived on the scene. Huge puffs of black smoke emitted from the debris-concentrated spot on Jamaica Bay. Despite the accident happening in the out and open, reportedly no one saw the plane crash firsthand. Only a few men who were in the nearby airfield actually saw the geyser of brackish water explode from the bay and the plane roll over. News about the event came around the exact same time John Glenn had arrived, interrupting the attention that was brought to the parade. Over 350 police officers and firefighters were at the scene. The rescue team had arrived around the same time, but there was no one to rescue. Instead, the team conceded to recovery, using that time to collect plane debris and the possessions of the victims. Out of all the bodies that were recovered, only a few were left intact. Fictionally, the crash killed the father of Pete Campbell on the AMC television series Mad Men.
It's the strangest thing. Apparently my father was on that plane.
What?
My father, he was on the plane.
In short, the crash still sits in the minds of many historians, despite the event's notoriety to the general public having dwindled away after nearly 60 years. But why did it happen? As stated earlier, Flight 1 had passed all of the safety tests that were conducted shortly before its takeoff on that fateful day. The overall condition of the plane was fine. The weather was nice, it was sunny outside. What went wrong? President Kennedy asked that very same question, ordering an investigation to determine what exactly caused the crash. Researchers formulated some hypotheses for a likely cause, and then formed their tests around them. Before diving into what went on during the investigation, it is important to first get a general idea of both the events that had taken place and an observation of the plane's behavior right before the crash. The last periodic inspection that was made on the aircraft was January 18th. At this time, its total number of flight hours was about 7,900. About a month and a half later, on the day of the accident, the plane's flight hours had increased to around 8,100. Although this difference may seem great because it is in terms of hours, for an airplane, these numbers are very small. The aircraft on average flew about 7 hours per day, so the odds of this amount of operation time causing damage to the plane shortly after passing a recurrent examination over a span of just 6 weeks is very unlikely. those who followed aircraft regulation felt that there was no reason to be concerned, and Flight 1 could go about its business. The plane had been airborne at around 1,600 feet for approximately 2 minutes when it made a left turn to a heading of 290. While it was turning, the plane tilted too much, which caused it to flip over 90 degrees and eventually flip upside down. While in this position, the plane nosedived into the Pumpkin Patch Channel of Jamaica Bay, killing everyone on board instantly. Although no one is confirmed to have witnessed the event play out, a flight recorder obtained from the rubble of the accident was able to document the plane's altitude and flight dynamics, verifying in great detail just exactly what it was doing right before the crash. The fact that the plane showed no signs of peculiar behavior upon its departure is what baffled so many people. It was a complete mystery. The investigators that were summoned could really only do one thing, and that was to come up with theories and to test their likelihood. One possibility that was tested was the idea that alcohol, drugs, and other toxic substances may have been involved. The pilots were essentially obliterated on impact, so investigators could not get a reasonable sampling of body tissue to determine whether or not they were intoxicated during the flight. No other evidence that supported this claim revealed itself at the scene of the accident. Because of these circumstances, the possibility that alcohol or drug intoxication influenced the crash was ruled out. After further digging, the Civil Aeronautics Board filed a report stating that the crash may have been caused by a case of mechanics oversight with the rudder mechanism, which was believed to have been missing both a cotter pin and a bolt, making it more vulnerable. Although this explanation seemed quite logical and was deemed as one of the most likely causes of the incident, again, there simply was just no evidence. As the director of the FAA Flight Standards Service, George C. Prill, had stated, "You cannot say this is it. We can never prove it happened, even though it could have happened." With that being said, everyone involved in the operation was practically still at square one. Nothing at the scene of the accident that invoked any interest ever showed up, so it seemed as if the investigation was just going in circles. However, everything changed in January of 1963. A group of detectives were visiting the Bendix Corporation's manufacturing plant in Teterboro, New Jersey. This was the same facility that created American Airlines Flight 1. Upon inspection of each airplane that was stationed there, these detectives spotted something that would reveal the answers to all of their questions and open the pathway to solve this 10-month-old mystery. They had noticed that factory employees were improperly binding wires together using tweezers, increasing the chances of damaging wire insulation and therefore getting short circuits. Perhaps a shorted circuit is what caused the crash. Their theories were substantiated when it was revealed after examination that multiple aircrafts at this plant were suffering from this exact problem. The Bendix Corporation denied these theories, arguing that each model underwent as many as 50 inspections while it was in production, and had the insulation on the wires been damaged at any point before manufacturing was complete, the error would have been detected and taken care of right away. Regardless, the CAB still declared that a short circuit, which caused a rudder control system malfunction, was the most likely abnormality that led the plane to its fate. The crash that destroyed American Airlines Flight 1 and ended 95 lives became the single deadliest commercial plane disaster in American history. The last plane crash that occurred in New York involving American Airlines was with Flight 320, which crashed into the East River, killing 65 people. This disaster happened, coincidentally, on February 3, 1959, the same day Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper had their fatal accident. So what does this all mean? What exactly is the significance of this event, which appears to be none other than a tragedy? As tragic as the event was, turning a clear, sunny, and optimistic day in New York City into one of smoke, carnage, and despair, it provided to the world a valuable lesson on the importance of safety. Manufacturers now knew, based on the CAB's reports, to take extra caution when performing maintenance on aircrafts, as well as making sure that none of their components are missing before they begin operation. The event also had an influence on forming aspects of our culture that may seem conventional today. Among the victims was 50-year-old Louise Eastman. Coping with her mother's death, her 20-year-old daughter, Linda, immediately married her college boyfriend on impulse, having a child with him named Heather. When the marriage failed shortly after, Linda realized life was too short to be wasted and dedicated her life to photography. This would soon be the start of a very fruitful career, where she would eventually meet one of the Beatles, Paul McCartney. She would soon marry him, changing her and her daughter's name to Linda and Heather McCartney. Events like these are essentially the butterfly effects of modern world history. Incidents that may seem unimportant and minuscule in the long term, but in reality hold great cultural significance and essentially shape the way our society is structured today. By getting a better view, analysis, and understanding of the causes and effects of incidents such as the terrors that went down with American Airlines Flight 1, we are reminded that we should never underestimate the events that transpired in our history, because in many cases, they tend to appear much smaller than they really are. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and check out my Patreon to gain early access to videos and view exclusive content.